I tell you what, I'm glad you decided to come out for a night of laughs. I'm always grateful when people decide that. I think if you have a good sense of humor, it helps if either your mom or your dad was nuts. By applause, how many of you grew up in a home where mom was nuts? How about that, where mom was nuts? How about dad was nuts? Dad was nuts, okay. How about both of them should have been put away? How about that? All right. In my house, there was mom. I loved her to death, but she said some of the silliest things I never heard before or since. Where'd this come from? Spitting image. Where'd that come from? Spitting image. Look at him there. He's the spitting image of him there. I always thought, did anybody ever walk up to somebody and say, you know, you look a lot like Bill? You're a dead ringer. And she was always working like a dog. Mom was always working like a dog. I've been working like a dog. Never figured out where that came from. Anybody here got a dog that's a raging workaholic? Have I got the only lazy dog left in America? Have I got the only dog whose work schedule reads sleep 23 hours, wake, eat, poop, bark, and repeat? My dog is so lazy, he has worked out a system where he poops anywhere in the yard he wants to, and I pick it up. And I call myself the master. Let me ask you something. If you saw two people walking down the street, one of them took a poop and the other one picked it up, which one would you say is the master? I am no master. Mom said those things all the time. Here's one that your mom probably said to you too. Don't you be getting a big head, because you're no better than anybody else. Really, Mom? Nobody? Not anybody? Have you read the paper? There's a lot of scumbags out there. Throw me a bone. I don't have to be better than everybody, but I'm pretty sure I'm better than somebody. I can think of a whole Santa's reindeer list worth of people I hope I'm better than. How about Hitler and Stalin and O.J. Simpson and Gacy and Bundy and Dahmer and Nixon, huh? How about them? What do you say? But here's the one that always put me over the edge. You've heard this one before, too. If everybody jumped off the bridge, would you jump too? Oh, golly, now it's everybody. Everybody, Mom, that's a lot of people. That's everybody we know and everybody they know. But okay, let's go with your thought. It always seems to me if everybody jumped off the bridge, eventually it wouldn't even be much of a fall. Right? You know, they just keep jumping, you know. 3-4 days, 8-10 million people jump. You can just step off that bridge. Come on, you can jump, get back on, jump again if you want to. What the heck? Make an afternoon out of it, you know. I wouldn't go first.
Let's all just jump off the bridge. Let's just everybody get it on. Let's just all just go do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very funny comedian on the show today. He's appeared on Showtime, Comedy Central, Comic Relief, and Bob and Tom has his own Dry Bar comedy special, which we were just viewing a snippet of. Open for Jerry Seinfeld and Jeff Foxworthy. From Chicago, everybody, please, with no further ado, please welcome to the show the very talented and the very funny Rex Havens. Hello, Rex. How are you?
Rex, man, that's the most spectacular introduction I've ever had. The show's almost over. Thank you, Maurice. Yeah.
Yeah, that was some really good stuff there, Rex. I'll tell you, man. You know, we got this pandemic going on, and for comics, it's really tough for us right now to figure it all out. What are you doing to stay busy right now, Rex?
I'll tell you the truth. I guess maybe it's because I'm at a stage in my career where I have the luxury of not doing anything. Really not. I have not said hello to an audience in over a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I know some guys are doing virtual things. I don't think I ever had the confidence that I could master that and figure it out. My hat's off to you for what you're doing here with the show, and you figured out the technology and you know what you're doing, and you've put together a quality show and people like it, and congratulations to you for that.
Well, Rex, I appreciate it, man. And I honestly, appreciate what you're doing though. Kind of like this. All right, let me just relax and take it easy because I was talking to another comedian recently and she said, I feel relieved. Like I don't know. I just feel this sense of pressure being off and I just feel relaxed and relieved right now. And then I thought the same thing about my own, persona, like, wow, I'm doing all these shows, I'm writing, I'm constantly running and doing shows. And it is kind of a respite. Maybe this is a welcomed respite for now before we get back out there. But so you've already answered my next question because I was going to ask you if you were doing any Zoom shows, anything on the virtual platform. So as we go forward, Rex, do you have any idea as to whether or not you may jump into the fray?
I doubt it. I thank you for that. And I wish I had some great insights as to what that road or that path might look like. But I admire the people that have figured that out. I decided kind of early on. I've had offers, particularly corporate clients and stuff. I've had offers for a Zoom kind of a thing. Having talked to other comedians, I hadn't really run into anybody who. I ran into other comedians who had made peace with it, but I hadn't run into too many comedians that loved it. And I just decided that I needed that audience, and that I was that interaction, be able to look into people's faces, to be able to hear their reactions. I've always said this: comedy is a tennis match between the comedian and the audience, and that ball keeps going back and forth.
Yeah,
you give your line, and then they have to give you something.
Yes.
You have to hear something back. It's
right.
Your turn, then it's their turn, and you kind of lean against that laughter when it comes back at you. And when there's nothing coming back at all, and heck, we've all bombed at one time or another. When there's nothing coming back at all, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. You don't have that normal comfort that you have on a stage when you're interacting with a great audience. And that's kind of what virtual is like. And that's why I think a lot of the comedians I've talked to say that they're not huge fans of trying to do an event like that, because they just don't get that great, big, broad feedback from an audience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was interesting you were talking about during your set there that we just played about dogs in America. It's really interesting, dude, because we treat dogs like people. I had a friend, he said, Maurice, I bought my dog a hearing aid. I went, why would you do that? He said, well, wives. So I had to go out and do that. So I'm like, I don't understand. If an alien came here and saw the way people scoop up the poop after their dog, the aliens would be convinced, Rex, this place has truly gone to the dogs.
You just reminded me of one of David Letterman's very early jokes. I think he did it on the very first Tonight Show that he was ever on.
Yeah,
was he saw a commercial for a product that you could use if your dog was constipated, and his line was, to me, if your dog is constipated, why screw up a good thing?
I can imagine David Letterman telling a joke like that's classic Dave Letterman, no question about it. Now we played a little bit of your stuff, but really a lot of your comedy, Rex, is kind of centered around marriage. What motivated you to focus on that?
I think I just let the audience tell me what parts of the show that I felt that they liked the most.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of comedians would tell you that they wind up gravitating toward what gets the best reaction.
Yeah.
And it was always when I got to that 5 or 10 minutes that was about men and women in marriage that I felt the reaction was the best. And, afterwards people would talk to you about your show and tell you what they really liked. And that really seemed to click. And so that grew from, 5 to 10 minutes to 15 to 30, and eventually kind of took over the whole show. In fact, now I do a stage show, which is called Women and Children First. And by the way, that has its own website, which is womenfirsttheater.com. theatershowwithmike.com. And that's a 2-hour show.
Okay.
That I do in theaters around the country. In fact, this Saturday, for the first time in 54 weeks, I'm going to do a show in Sidney, Nebraska, at a nice theater that they have here, and then the following night on Sunday in Valentine, Nebraska, and another theater up there. And so that's a 2-hour show. So it gradually over the years, and I've been doing this over 25 years. So gradually over the years, the show about men and women kind of took over. Now I can still do a comedy club set that's not about men and women. I've certainly got plenty of material, but the man-woman stuff took off to the point where I turned it into its own theater show, and been having a lot of fun with that. We use a movie screen, use PowerPoint, and we run about 500 images and videos and audios over my shoulder so that it's not just people looking at my ugly bald head for 2 hours. There's a lot more to look at other than just me. And I've had a lot of fun with that new format. I mean, stand-up comedy, just standing there by yourself with a mic. I mean, that was fun for years and years and years and years, but this is a different form of expression. And I really enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, women and children first. You should have Van Halen open the show for you.
Yes, sir. No, I'm dead certain they'd be interested.
There's no doubt about it. I like what you said though about kind of feeling the audience out, because really as comedians, that's kind of how we figure out how to put our sets and routines together over multiple appearances on stage over the years, yada yada yada. What people like, because it's ultimately at the end of the day, it's for the audience, and they usually tell you what's good and what's not good, and you got to figure it out. Now you've been doing this a long 25 years, Rex. I've been in this for about 8 to 10, so I'm really kind of at that point where it's like I'm really turning a big time corner. As a matter of fact, just before the pandemic, dude, I was on a giant roll, and then of course everything kind of stopped. Is this going to be your first appearance in a year down in Sydney?
This will be my first first live show in 54 weeks.
Wow.
The last one, I was in LA at a theater on Valentine's Day 1 year ago. And I did not know when I said goodnight that night that was going to be it for over a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was down in Miami and had a tremendous run down there, and, came back to DC, where this is where I'm based, out of DC, and did one show, and that was it. And when you walked out of the venue, you weren't thinking that was going to be the last time that you would be on stage, but sure enough, it was, man, just crazy.
And I'm really, really lucky, and I acknowledge this. I am very lucky personally that this hit when it did, because I realized it's a luxury. I had the luxury of taking a year off, and I didn't wind up in the street. It happened at a time when I could withstand a year of not working. But I have a great empathy for people who might not have been in that spot, because I had plenty of times in my earlier career when, if this had happened, I would have jumped off a bridge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what, Rex? You're right. That's a great point you make when you're talking about entertainment, comedians, what we do. I mean, even actors, because the Hollywood has been tremendously affected as well, even though they're kind of figuring it out. But no, there are guys out there that can't afford this. They can't afford it. And it's a really, really bad deal for a lot of us in this industry. I thank God that I did what my mom always told me to do. Don't quit your day job, son.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I started off in comedy, I had a day job, and I kept that day job for 7 years.
Okay.
Until I was doing well enough at comedy to quit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what you have to do. I mean, in this business, okay, I think we got one of the young comics calling for advice there, Rex. But
there will not be another one of those. I shut it off. That's my bad.
It's all good. It's all good. But no, in this business, man, it's very tenuous if you don't have your ducks in a row, because if things go really left, you're in a bad situation. And the biggest advice you can give young entertainers is, make sure before you take that leap, that you can do it pretty safely. It's dangerous.
I did. I went 7 years with a day job, working in an office, and then I would make the rounds of the clubs at night. And even then, even after I was connected with a lot of agents and a lot of clubs, even then, I probably took a 60% pay cut that first year.
Wow.
When I walked out of the office and said, I'm not coming back. Now, but I had planned for that, and I knew that would probably be the case.
Yeah.
And then after, the next year it got a little better, and the next year it got a little better. And about, I would say 3 to 4 years in, I was back to making as much money as I had from that day job in comedy before. And then it grew and grew and grew. When you do leave one world behind, I'll tell you this, here's the only good thing. When you do leave one world, one little orbit that you've been in, like the office that you worked in or the business that you worked in, and you go out and explore the great big wide world, you find that there are new worlds of people that you will meet, and that you will, they've been there all along, but you were too busy in that other life to meet them. And this happens to anybody who makes a career change. You just find a new group of people that become your world, and after you get a foothold there, things will tend to grow for you.
Well, Gigi, thanks for the comment there. You got to take a leap of faith. Sometimes you get to that. Gigi Orsillo was in the film Sleeper Agent with Leland Klassen. I don't know if you've ever seen that film or not. You should check it out. It's hilarious. It's a great comedy. But no, you're right, Gigi. It's like you got to take a leap of faith sometimes. You do this stuff for a while. You're getting some traction, and then it's like, okay, Lord, now it's should I jump? No, sometimes you have to do that, or you'll never make it. And Rex, it's hard to kind of measure, am I being too safe or not? Sometimes
it is. That keeps a lot of people up at night, trying to figure if it's okay to make a big change in your life. I had the support of my wife, and she was working at the time too. So here's what I say. I've told this to audiences before.
Yeah.
That I found myself a middle-aged man who went to his wife and said, "Sweetheart, this is nuts. This is crazy. I'm too old. I'm bald. I'm not photogenic. I'm not telegenic.
Right.
No one will probably ever build a sitcom around me, and I will probably never be famous. But I love only you more than the sound of a room full of people having a good laugh. And if possible, I would like to throw all the security away and join the circus." And she looked at me and said, "Just do it. We'll make it work."
Wow.
And I will stay by her side forever, because I'm sure, Maurice, you agree, it would just be too cruel to leave a woman that stupid.
Hey, Rex, you know what, dude? I mean, honestly, that's good. I love it. But honestly, it's all about the support. If your wife is on your side, you can't beat that. That's the best thing in life, when your wife is supporting you. I mean, my wife is the same way. I would not be doing this if my wife were not 100% on board.
And I'm sure you're smart enough to appreciate that not everybody has that. I've told that little story before in front of an audience, and seen women elbow their husbands.
All right, Gigi. Yeah.
Elbow their husbands and say, "Don't you get any crazy ideas like that?"
Right.
She may have been okay with that. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
You keep going to the office. I like my life just the way it is. I don't want to take any chances.
Yeah, that you have that. You absolutely have that, and it hinders, your dream. It's like, wow, you know what? Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to pull back on it because you got to have the support. If you don't have the support system at home, dude, it's a great chance it's just not going to work. So that's huge. That's huge. Now, you talk a lot about marriage and how slow men are to catch on. Women are so far ahead of us. Dadgummit, Rex, I tell you, to me, why are we so slow to catch on, Rex?
I think mostly ego. I think as young men, we get it drilled into us that it's a man's world, by golly, and I am destined to control the world and rule all that I see.
Yeah.
And to those young men, I say, good luck to you and grow up.
Yes.
It's not about us. If you find a woman that's okay with that, then God bless you. Go ahead, give it a shot. And I've always said you ought to recognize at the wedding day that it's not about you, and that should be your first clue, because everything is about her. I have no problem with that. That's the way it's always been. It's the way it always will be. It's her day. It's not your day. Everything's about her. Her dress, her gown costs hundreds, maybe thousands. There are 5 separate fittings after the ceremony. Her dress is carefully cleaned and pressed and folded and sealed, wrapped in plastic, saved as an altar and shrine for life. The groom's clothing is rented, Maurice, rented, and has to be back to the shop on Monday because another guy needs it next weekend. That's how important you are.
Well, you know what? I always tell my sons, I said, listen, date smarter. Date smarter, guys. And my son's like, Dad, we get it. You do everything Mom says. Yeah, we got it. We got it, Dad. We got it. So, yeah, man. I mean, when you realize the partner that you have is smarter than you, just give up, man. It's just like, well, hey, we're all trying to sail on this ship safely. So let's all be smart here.
How many times has Barack Obama said, I don't know why y'all elected me. My wife is much smarter person.
Oh my goodness. He said it so many times.
Yeah.
He has no problem saying that. And at the end of the day, man, I like what you said, Rex. You have to get to a point where you mature enough, you get over yourself, and then you just accept it for what it is.
I got to a point, I had as much machismo in me as a young man as maybe anybody else, but I did eventually get to a point where I had the maturity to say, I don't think this has done me any good at all. I don't think it's gotten me anywhere. I think I'm being a little bit silly. Now, in truth, I think with my wife and I think we have just about the ideal perfect 50-50 marriage. No, I don't do everything she says, and she doesn't do everything I say.
Right.
But I think if you have that 50-50, if you really feel like there's a sharing going on there, then you can make some jokes about it. You can make some jokes about how she gets her way, half the time, and maybe you get your way half the time, and maybe she is smarter than you. Now, there are some guys who are threatened by that. Occasionally I'll have a man after the show who just feels like I should fight harder, and I've given up too quickly. And come on, man, can't you see the tongue in my cheek? We're having a little fun with this. Yeah, I think. Yeah, exactly. I do think women have a lot of qualities that men don't. I've asked this of an audience many times. By applause, how many of you learned most of your best lessons in life from men? Mm-hmm. Versus, and then the next question, how many of you learned most of the best lessons you learned in life from women? Okay. And the audience reaction is always at least 2-1 in favor of women taught them the greatest lessons in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you really go way back, the women were the ones that teach at home. You know, the man's off working, whether he's
Yep.
digging ditches or wherever he's doing. But the wife is at home. She's the one that's teaching the kids and teaching them how to have manners and respect and how you behave when you're outside the home and yada, yada, yada on down the line. And so, yeah, I mean, mom really does a lot of the teaching. And so I did a show once where I said, you know, let's hear it for the ladies. I think it was on a Valentine's Day or something like that. And I kind of went into my jokes from there. And a couple of guys after the show were like, you know, why are you, you know, pandering to the ladies, you know? And it, like I said, dude, these are just, you know, we're just having fun here. And, you know, if you got to get mad because I'm giving respect to the ladies, you know, you may want to check yourself. But yeah, you get some guys that get mad, man.
I want to say to you too that I'm older than you, I'm quite sure, Maurice, but you're showing your age there when you said digging ditches, because the young people have no idea that men used to dig ditches. Young people will tell you, hey, Caterpillar backhoe digs ditches, man. What are you talking about? People don't get shovels out and dig no ditches no more.
Well, now look, Rex, you're not that much older than me. If you are, I'm 56, so I've seen a lot of stuff. I have you know, I was telling. We've seen it. We've both seen a lot of stuff, Rex. But I can tell you, you know, I had a joke about my dad, you know, throwing me out onto the football field. You know, I was a little kid, and I mean, I was greatly undersized. I mean, all these big guys are out there. I'm looking up at my dad. I said, Dad, you know, I'm a dwarf. You know that, right? Hey, they got beards. But you know
well,
what?
Let me tell you something. I was in 7th grade when they snipped your umbilical cord.
Wow. Rex, you know what? I actually, when I look back on a lot of things my dad made me do back then, I appreciate it. It's like, man, I really needed that. I needed to be roughed up. I needed to go through that experience. You know what I mean? It's like at the time you hate it, you resent your pop for it. It's like, man, why are you doing? And then as you get older, you go, man, I'm so glad he made me do these things.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Mark Twain even said when he was 14, he thought his father was an idiot, and when he was 21, he was amazed at how many things his father had learned in those short 7 years.
Yeah, yeah. So you know. It's amazing that things have changed so much. Now we have to kind of like bite our bottom lip, you know, and just kind of go with a lot of things just to keep the peace. But it's so different.
Who did you love growing up as a comedian?
You know what? Believe it or not, and I'm a clean comic. But I'm going to be totally honest with you. My favorite comedian was Richard Pryor. I was one of those kids that had the Richard Pryor albums under the bed. You know, I was trying to hide it from mom and dad. And also, I loved George Carlin.
Yep, me too. And both of those, you can't do any better than both of those. And I had them too. I had clean comedians. I had dirty comedians. I was perfectly happy to listen to anything that would encourage an audience to laugh.
Yeah.
And I didn't really differentiate. When I wound up going into it myself, I gravitated more toward the clean side. But yeah, I really have no problem listening to any variety.
You know what I really learned? I mentioned George Carlin, and you know, I don't know if you've been doing this for 25 years. I'm sure, Rex, you don't worry about open mics anymore. I mean, was there ever a time though when you did a lot of them?
Well, of course, starting off, you know, your first 5 years at least, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I guess that naturally that weeds out a lot of people. It weeds out the people that are just kind of doing it as a hobby from the people who just have something inside them that says, I must do this.
Okay.
Because in an open mic, that is the time when you're brand new and you desperately need some audience support more than any other time in your career, and you are the least likely to get it.
Okay.
At an open mic, because I used to go to a club in Peoria, Illinois, which is where Richard Pryor was from.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
I started off at a club in Peoria, Illinois. Yeah. And on Monday nights, you go to open mic, and like I've said many times, they would give you 5 minutes in front of 6 drunks.
Pretty much.
And, you could really use a laugh or two. And it was, it was not consistent at all whether you'd get it or not. So if you bomb a couple of times in front of 6 drunks, a lot of those people would go away and they would never try stand-up comedy again. But I think if you really had something inside you that said, I must try this, I must find out if I'm any good at this or not, you'll be back the next week and those 6 drunks will still be there again, and you'll try it again, and maybe finally you'll get through to them. And then one day, somebody will trust you with a real audience. And then you can find out. Then you will find out that maybe a lot of that material was actually very good, but you had never been in front of a big audience before.
Well, you know what? That is a great point, Rex. A lot of times you're putting out some pretty good material, but in this day and age, because I'm just at the point where I'm getting out of the open mic stuff, although I am doing stuff on Zoom, but because you're performing and you're like, man, this is tough sledding. Open mics are just tough sledding. And so when you get in front of a big crowd, a legitimate crowd, then you go, oh man, these jokes are actually pretty good. I've definitely had that experience. And the reason that I brought it up, getting back to George Carlin never did open mics. He was a guy that would sit down and write an hour set.
Yep.
And then to his own particular satisfaction. And he'd go, all right, ready to put it out there for presentation. And it was always killer. And I had never heard of a comic that prepared in the way that George Carlin prepared.
Yeah.
But he was just a genius, and he grew up in a show business family. So he had a great deal of comfort being in front of a lot of people because of the family he grew up in. So I guess he just never felt like he needed to, go to an open mic or whatever. But the guy was a genius. He was an absolute genius.
Well, he was always preparing for his next HBO special, and those HBO specials came about every 12 to 18 months. So all the weekend shows that he would do in between his specials, he would go out and he would do 30 or 40 minutes worth of some of his proven material. And then he would go out with his yellow pad, and it was right there. And he would that's where he would workshop the new material. And he didn't try to hide it. He actually showed his audience. And when you're as popular as he was, you could get away with that. If you were an unknown comic reading off of your notepad, I think the audience would bail on you very quickly. But this was George Carlin. And George Carlin gets to read off a notepad if he wants to.
Yes, he does.
So he would
100%.
actually just read you 5 minutes of something that he had just written. He would get the audience's reaction to it. He would go back and rework it, and the next weekend when he's in another city, he would modify that and make it better and make it stronger. And then over the course of maybe 18 months, he's ready for his next HBO special.
I'll tell you another guy that was a great comic as well, and that's Red Fox.
Absolutely.
Red Fox was a guy that performed on the Chitlin circuit back in the 50s before black entertainers were really allowed levity, maybe in the 40s or 50s, something like that. Red Fox was so good that when they asked him to do a network appearance or in a big club or a big show, they said, "Hey, Red, can you tell those jokes you told in this particular show? Can you tell this, that, and the other again for this one that we're going to put?" He said, "Why? That I've already told it." So he didn't understand. He was so good. He was always creating new material. He never repeated jokes. And we're in a time where if we have gold, we don't throw it away. We keep building, but we never throw away the good stuff.
Yep.
And Red Fox was so good at it. It was foreign to him to do that.
Well, that's the big difference there a few years ago between Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld. Jay Leno said, "I will never throw away my act, my basic act. That's my bread and butter." And a lot of those, Jay Leno's 70 years old and he's still talking about being in the back seat of the car and his dad saying, "I'll stop this car and I'll turn it around." And I always thought, well, Jay, how how long can you keep doing that? Well, I was wrong. He's 70 and he's still doing it, and it still works.
Yeah.
Because everybody still remembers that. But Seinfeld, on the other hand, did something that Leno said he couldn't understand. He threw out, "I'm going to tell you this for the last time." That was one of his specials. I'm telling you this for the last time. And he said, these are all the jokes I've been doing for the last 20 years. This is the last time I'm going to do them. And it was an obituary for all of his old material.
Okay.
And he said, "I'm never going to tell any of those jokes again." And then he did a documentary about what it was like to go out and build a new act.
Wow.
Which is what he did. There's a great story about Red Fox. Did you ever hear the story where Red Fox came out in Vegas, and one night it was a late show and it was a very small audience, and he didn't realize that. And he goes out and he's not getting the reaction that he should be getting.
Yeah.
And it's dark, and he kind of looks into the audience like that, and there's only 13 people. And he just puts the microphone down and he walks off the stage and he says, I don't do no show for no blankety blank 13 people.
I've heard that story. I think Eddie Murphy was talking about that with Jerry Seinfeld, how he came out and he threw out a couple of expletives, and they played the Sanford and Son intro or whatever. And he walks off stage. But the guy was a matter of fact, Rex, honestly, as we're talking about Red Fox and Jerry Seinfeld, I think those are to me personally anyway, the two funniest shows I've ever seen. And they're so diametrically opposed, but they're so funny. Sanford and Son is the funniest show I think I've ever seen. And then Seinfeld is definitely the second best. I saw Red Fox on Flip Wilson do a scene called The Heckler on the Flip Wilson show. And he was sitting there at a table as if they were at the club, and Flip Wilson is telling jokes, and he's bombing and he's heckling him. And what was amazing is that every heckle, and you could tell that Red Fox was making it up. You could tell he was making it up right off the cuff, and it was just killing. His wit was so absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
That I just don't know that we have seen. But then there's so many great ones, man. I got Don Rickles and oh my gosh, I could go on. Don Rickles, I love Don Rickles. He was the only guy that I think I've ever seen, Rex, that was just mean. He was a mean guy. He was able somehow to endear himself to the audience.
There was something about his look and his face and his voice that allowed him to get away with things that most people could not get away with.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. He was.
I'll tell you what. The three funniest hours I think I ever saw was I saw Sam Kinison live at a club in Peoria.
Yeah. Okay.
He came back to his home club. And at the end of that night, everything I had hurt. My hands hurt from clapping. My throat hurt from laughing. My chest hurt. My cheeks hurt. He could punish you. I think one of the best hours I ever saw, I'm going to throw in a name there that, did you know of Richard Jeni?
Richard? No, I don't think so.
Okay, Richard Jeni. Well, we lost him a few years ago, but his last name is Jeni, Richard Jeni from New York.
Okay.
Yeah, he had an HBO special called Platypus Man, which I think is one of the best ever. And another one I thought was Robin Williams live at the Met, or Robin Williams at the Met, maybe.
Another genius, an absolute genius.
Yeah, yeah.
Don Rickles was in Vegas, Rex. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rex.
No, that was it.
So Don Rickles was in Vegas once, and he's up there, and he has this joke where he goes, "Is that your wife?" The guy goes, "Yeah, this is my wife." He goes, "Huh." He would do that all the time. He was so insulting.
Who else could get away with that and still have the audience like them?
Exactly. And he was in Vegas, and he was performing in front of a lot of mafioso guys in Vegas a lot. He said he said he's in his dressing room after one show, and he gets a knock at the door. And it's one of the guys he insulted. Big, rocky, mafioso guy, standing there. And he said, "Uh-oh, this is it. I'm finally gonna get what I deserve. I'm gonna get pummeled." That's what he was thinking when he looked at this big Italiano guy. He said, "Hey, Donnie, I think you're great. Can I get your autograph?" I mean, just amazing, man. Absolutely amazing.
Are you aware of that great story that the prank he pulled on Sinatra?
I don't know. I may be aware.
Real quick. He knows Sinatra, and he's kind of part of the group a little bit. He's having dinner. Rickles is having dinner with a new woman in his life, somebody he's trying to impress. He sees Frank and a group of people over across the room having dinner. He goes over to Frank. You know this? He goes over to Frank and he says, "Frank, I'd really like to impress this girl over here. On your way out, would you just come by and say hi to me so she knows that you know me, and that's going to make me look good."
Right.
And he goes back to the table. Rickles goes back. He's sitting with the girl. A few minutes later, Sinatra walks by and says, "Don Rickles, how you doing? Nice to see you." And Rickles looks up and goes, "Frank, can't you see I'm eating?"
Yeah, I've heard that story, Rex. It's pretty awesome, man. Frank Sinatra is the only I'm sorry, Rodney Dangerfield, not Rodney Dangerfield, Don Rickles. Kevin Scott Collier is talking about Rodney, who always made him laugh to tears. Love Rodney, no question about it. But Don Rickles is the only guy that Frank Sinatra would allow to demean him.
Yes.
I mean, Frank Sinatra would literally allow Don Rickles to just totally deconstruct it.
Yeah.
And he just laughed it off. He loved it.
He was able to do it with enough of a wink in his eye that you knew that it wasn't genuine. It wasn't really mean. It was play mean for comedy's sake.
100%. And so he's one. And if you're a young comic out there, we're throwing out some names that you gotta research and look at, watch video, get your pen and pad out and learn, because those are the greats. Those guys, Rodney Dangerfield, Kevin, he's also one of them. Rodney, oh my gosh, he worked so hard at being great at comedy until he became what? Great.
Yeah, you made me think about all those young comedians out there. And Maurice, you and I are going down this road. I mean, pretty soon we're going to be talking about walking uphill to school 20 miles in the snow each way.
Hey, Rex, let me, yeah, you're right about that. Rex, let me ask you something, because at one point in your life, way back, you were a college professor. How did you transition from that into stand-up?
Well, I think the teaching was a great start. There's a lot of comedians out there who do have teaching as their background.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you've seen that the greatest fear most people have is talking in front of a group of people.
Right.
I saw that was number one time. Death was number 6. How about that?
Gosh. Oh, my goodness.
So teaching... I think I probably had the normal nervousness about being in front of a group of people back when I started teaching, but teaching thrusts you into it and you get used to it.
Yeah.
And then I always enjoyed my teachers who threw a little bit of humor into the presentation. It keeps you interested and, keeps things lively.
Yeah.
And so I would try to do that in my teaching as well. I mean, I taught for a total of 12 years. And I eventually got to the point where I knew that I could get a laugh in class, but I never knew if it was a real laugh, because a student is actually grateful for anything that breaks the monotony.
Yes.
So I knew that getting a laugh was only a secondary or a part of my presentation. I always wondered, could I get a laugh if it was my primary goal? And so that's when I started going nights. Over on Monday nights, I would go over to the club in Peoria and see whether or not that stuff was funny. If I wasn't trying to teach some hard subject, if that was my primary goal to get a laugh, could I do it? And the only motivation I ever had. I never thought I was going to be a movie star. I never thought I was going to be a sitcom star. That was never a goal. That was never something that probably because I never thought that was something I would likely achieve anyway.
Mm-hmm.
My whole goal was simply loving the sound of laughter.
Wow.
I loved it since I was a kid. I loved it since watching stand-ups on TV as an 8-year-old and watching my parents laugh, like watching the Ed Sullivan Show, watching my parents laugh, hearing them laugh. I realized they didn't laugh all the time in their everyday life. They had 2 sons and they had responsibilities and life was serious. My dad had come home from World War II, for crying out loud. They didn't laugh all the time because life was hard at times. But to see that they still had that little kid in them and that they could still laugh when Alan King came out on the Ed Sullivan Show, for example, that gave me hope. That made me realize that it's possible to grow up and still have a little bit of that little kid inside you that you can bring out once in a while when it's okay, when it's safe to have a laugh, when it's time to have a laugh. And I just, that sound of people laughing was my only motivation. I just loved hearing it. I loved being around it. That's why I had more comedy albums as a kid than I had music albums, because I loved the sound of a large group of people having a great time.
And it is a great sound, Rex. It is a great sound. I saw Jamie Foxx describe the euphoria of a big arena laughing. He said, and it was a great description he gave. He said, you tell the joke and you hit the punchline, and he said the laugh kind of goes all the way back to the end of the arena, and it comes back to you like a wave. And I went, whoa, man.
Yeah.
You know, what a feeling that must be. And I've never performed in front of thousands or anything like that. I have not had the pleasure of doing that, but I've heard that if you're really on your game, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing.
The odd thing, the cruel thing about stand-up is when you're getting started, you're going to have small audiences, and it's very, very difficult. When you get a little better, you're going to wind up in front of bigger audiences, and it actually becomes easier. The laugh lasts longer. You get longer to reload for your next line.
Yeah.
You get the luxury of making some goofy faces and expressions while that laughter rolls all over you.
Yeah.
The job actually gets easier the longer you've been in it.
Now let me ask you this, Rex, getting down to the nuts and bolts of comedy, as we're kind of getting to that point. Here's a good one here, because it's unavoidable at some point, and you've been doing this for 25 years, so I'm sure this has probably happened to you before. Have you ever had to deal with the heckler?
I think the better you get, the less you have to deal with a heckler. The more confidence you show as a performer,
right, the
less likely somebody is to butt in.
Right.
You get a rhythm established, and I think even if a person wants to, they're going to be hesitant to jump in there. So I really haven't dealt with hecklers for past the first maybe 5 years.
And you know what? I like what you said there, Rex, about confidence. I think that, and like I said, I've been doing this about 8-9 years, but when I see a person that's starting to become vocal, what I've found is that, first of all, they've been drinking, and secondly, they're excited, and they think, that they're helping you.
They think they're helping.
Yeah. And so what I tend to do is go, you know what? You're right, but stick around. You're going to love the end of this. Or I'll say something like that, right? So invariably, I found that they will just kind of sit down, and they got their 5 seconds of fame because I acknowledged them. So they feel really great now because I acknowledged them. Or they'll go, this guy is so focused on getting to his punchline, I might be the butt of the punchline, and they'll be quiet. That's kind of what I know.
I think that sums it up very, very nicely. The only person who won't shut up is somebody who is so drunk that they're incapable of learning any lessons in life at that particular moment.
Yeah.
And if you're in a club, that person will eventually they'll be allowed about 2 or 3 bites at the apple, but then they'll be shown the door.
They'll be shown the door. I've only had 3 bad experiences with hecklers. One, again, girl, this female had just meant she was 3 sheets to the wind, dude. There was just no coming back for her. And she was coming at everybody. And I got up there and I was able to get her to sit down, but she messed my mind up so bad. I didn't know where I was in my set. I was just
right.
I just found a way to get through it, but she just messed me up. And then I had someone that these 2 girls, they're about to get into a fist fight. And that, of course, that was one of these bars, one of these open mics, you're working on materials. They're about to get to a fight. And one guy came up to the stage, got mad at me. And I said, everybody calm down. He's excited. I promised him we'd go chase Pokemon later. It's okay. And, everybody laughed and he got embarrassed and went and sat down. But
I'm sorry, was that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, real quick. I was in Indiana and this lady right in the front row just kept one after another. Finally, I delivered I delivered a heckler line that embarrassed her and shut her up. But she points at her boyfriend next to her and says, "He's going to get you after the show."
Whoa.
Now they both shut up and I was able to finish the show and it was a very nice crowd. They were the only 2, rotten apples.
Belligerents. Yeah.
But I went and I said goodnight and I walked off stage and I go back into the kitchen area. And for all I know, this guy is going to come at me. So I actually grabbed a fork and put it in my jacket.
Yeah.
Now they never showed up, but I went home and I told that story to my wife. And now, just as a joke between she and I, every time she knows I'm going to Indiana, before I leave the house, she brings me a fork.
Oh my gosh, that's funny, Rex. And you get oddballs like that in your audience from time to time, and just completely, and you see everything when you're up there. I mean, you see all kind of facial expressions, and I had one guy look. Everybody was having a good time. Everybody was laughing except this one guy, and he looked like he wanted to come up there and kill me.
We've all seen that guy. That's why Lewis Black says he cannot look at the audience because that is the guy in his audience that he will fixate on and it will bother him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because I just avoided him. I just blocked him out. So I'm not going to look at him anymore. But I didn't get it. So this guy, what did I do to make this guy so upset? And just never know what people are thinking out there.
No, here's what you got to keep in mind when that happens, and that happens to everybody.
Yeah,
you have to keep in mind that you're in front of a couple hundred people, and that among 200 people, they've got every aspect of human existence going on in their lives.
Very true. Very true.
Yes. Some of them are dealing with disease. Some of them are dealing with family members that have disease. Some of them are going through divorces.
Yes.
Some of them, I don't need to go down a list any further than that. There's a million things that people are going through, and it is impossible that all 200 of them are in the perfect mood to laugh like crazy for 60 minutes.
That's true.
And you've got to accept the audience the way human beings come.
You do.
And if you're entertaining 95% of them, that's a victory.
I would totally agree with that. You're dealing with all kind of person, and sometimes the person that you think is mad at you is actually having a great time. I've had that experience before too, where I look at this guy. I'm like, this guy came up to me after a show. He said, "I loved it." And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I would ever think this guy enjoyed one moment of the show.
Yeah.
The entire time.
I had a woman one time, and she just kind of staring holes at me, and she looks angry. But eventually, as the show got going, she started to laugh, and I felt good about that. and she came up to me afterwards and she told me that I looked exactly like her ex, who she hated.
Oh my God.
And so before I had even said hello,
She already hated you.
she already hated me. But I felt good because as time went by, I won her over and she enjoyed herself. And she actually came up and, said so after the show. But I got no control over that. I can't help it that you used to have an ugly boyfriend.
Dude, Rex, there's so many issues out there. And quite frankly and honestly, we're doing some good work up there of healing. I mean, I think we are a medicine to a lot of ills that people are enduring when they go to a comedy show.
At least for a little while. I'm not sure that what we create lasts longer than the exact 60 minutes in which we're creating it. Because once it's over, people do tend to go back to their normal lives and their normal rhythms. They do say comedy is the best medicine, or laughter is the best medicine. But I always say, yeah, but if your chest is tight and it's hard to breathe, I would see a doctor. Really, don't call me.
Yeah, well, no. Well, one thing for sure is there are some people that are so far away from shore. One night of comedy is not going to do it. But there are some people that are like, kind of teeter-tottering, and some laughter will get them through whatever they're going through.
I think people like material that you do, which indicates that you have some of the same problems that they do.
Exactly. They love that. And it's all about being relatable and endearing to the audience. Can you?
Yeah. Jamie Foxx found, after Jamie Foxx became famous and more prosperous, he said he tried to go up there and do material about his new life, which included mansions and Porsches. And he learned that material didn't go over quite as well.
No, it's not. It doesn't. No, that doesn't go over. Because you're no longer the common man.
No, not at all.
So you can't talk about that stuff. That's totally unrelatable.
No.
As we talk about that right now, Eddie Murphy, for the past year, has been talking about returning to stand-up. And he's yet to do it. It's just talking right now. And I think that, and I'm guessing, I cannot speak for Eddie Murphy, but I'm thinking that he has found himself, because of his lifestyle, unrelatable probably to the common audience. It's like, Eddie, you can't be talking about the limos and the mansions, and nobody can relate to that.
No, David Allen Greer told a funny line about Eddie Murphy's house. David Allen Greer said, I was with Eddie in Eddie's house when Eddie discovered a room Eddie did not know he had.
Oh my gosh. You know what, Rex? It's got to be relatable to the audience. Damon Wayans, who's one, I think Damon Wayans he's one of my favorite comics. His son is a very good stand-up comic as well. And they did a show together. Talk about relatable. His son killed. Matter of fact, Damon actually opened up for his son. He bombed because it was a younger audience that couldn't relate to 50-plus-year-old jokes.
Right.
And that's all he was telling. It's like, Dave, that audience, they're not out there. You're going to have to get to find out whatever is relatable. But anyway, his son killed. And Damon Wayans, of all people, bombed. So, and as I say that, what is your worst bombing experience, Rex?
Well, I'll start off by saying this. Even if you have 100 great shows in a row, there is an audience out there just around the corner saying, come on in here. Come on in here. You think you're funny? We'll show you what death is like.
Oh, yes,
come
sir.
On in.
Absolutely.
Come on in. Yeah, you thought you had 100 great shows in a row. You think you're immune. You think you got it all figured out. Come on in here. Come on in here.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Always take the stage knowing that that could happen.
Yeah.
I think the worst bombing might have been an audience. I was hired by a corporate outfit to talk to their people, and most of their people were Asian.
Okay.
And you know how you take courses for English as a second language?
Yeah.
I think these people were still taking a course called English as your eighth language. So they were completely polite. They were so polite. They smiled constantly. They looked like an oil painting. Their faces never moved. They never made a sound. And I don't think they got the humor exactly, but they weren't mean. They didn't throw anything, but there was just a whole lot of silence because I believe because of the language barrier.
You know, that actually happened to me. I met my wife in a class like that. My wife is a beautiful lady from Brazil, and she was in this class, right? And I'm teaching at night, and I might get a GED class, I might get an ESL class, you know, whatever. I just went to these different classes. So and by the way, I use these classes to work on my stand-up. So
yeah, you do, you do.
And I went in, and I'm telling these jokes. And they're just kind of like looking at me politely. And I went over, I said, "Oh, this is the ESL class." So they didn't get anything that I was saying. So I joke with my wife every now and then about that, you know, but no, that can happen. I mean, if you get in a situation like that, dude, that's a bad feeling.
Well, you just learn to soldier through it.
Yeah.
Try not to let the panic show on your face.
Yes, and that will bring out a heckler. When you get into a spot,
yep.
and you don't look like you can handle it,
yep.
That's when they come out.
That's exactly right.
That's when they come out, and you have to have that ability to never let. I don't care how bad you're sweating, you can't let them see you sweat. And then you got to get that nose of the plane up. Then you can get it up because it's, you know, you're heading for a crash and burn. And you may not, and get this, sometimes you may not even get that nose up, but you can still leave with dignity if you maintain your composure.
Absolutely so. And, you know, I've had people ask whether or not, if you don't feel like you did as well as you wanted to, do you just shrug that off? Is it just, and it doesn't bother you? No, I think even after all the years that I've been in it, if I have a portion of the show where I don't feel like I connected well, that'll bother me for a day or two. I'll keep thinking about it, but
yeah,
I that probably makes you better the next time because you've had time to. Oh, wait a minute, maybe there was something about something I did that didn't sell that properly, and how could it be better? And it makes you go back and maybe rework.
Yeah, and it will definitely make you rework. If you go out and do something self-induced, and I've done that before, where I was, oh my gosh, I told the joke at a Christian event, and I tell you, I'm killing. I had one joke that I wanted to get out, and I said, if I land this one, I am the king of the hill. They will have me back so many more times. And I pulled the trigger. And I went from the top to the bottom in an instant. And I was like, oh, my gosh. But I was able to get over it very quickly because I knew I did it to myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And it can be done. You can feel invincible. And then without realizing it, you step over the line.
Yeah, you know, it's like, oh my gosh. But we push boundaries as comics too. It's like we are always pushing boundaries because we are trying to be really, really good at this. And it just depends on whether or not you're ready to accept the consequences if it's not a good deal. But anyway, it's just part of the game. This has been a great conversation, by the way, Rex. We have destroyed this hour, my friend. I do want to ask you one more question before we get out of here. How did you get the opportunity to open for Jerry Seinfeld?
Well, actually, that was fairly early in my career.
Wow!
It was while I was still working at that club in Peoria.
Okay.
And he came to town, to do a show on a Sunday night. And yeah, I got to hang with him for a little while. This was so long ago. It was before he even got his sitcom.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was quite a long time ago. But very nice guy. Seinfeld always had the reputation of a guy that did not waste his time between shows. That he would stay in his hotel room. If he was in a city for 4 nights doing a club, he would stay in his hotel room and work and write. And a lot of comedians just they goof the day off and wait until the next show that night. But he was always very serious about sitting down and working. He tells a story about how he saw guys working on the street in New York go on their lunch break and then have to come back to work. And he thought, well, they're probably not really eager to go back to work, but they're going back to work, and that's what you do. You work. And he thought, well, this is my work. I should be dedicated about it. I should be diligent about it. I should sit down and I should make things happen and put things on paper and not just walk the streets all day or go to the movies. So his success is very much the result of very, very much hard work.
Yes, absolutely. And as you say that, any advice you'd like to leave with young aspiring comedians that would like to make a career out of this?
Well, all you can do is search out the stage time. Nothing is more valuable than stage time. Bill Maher used to say back when he was living in New Jersey that he would go practically anywhere. He would drive halfway across the country for $50. He took gigs where he knew he was losing money, but it would get him stage time.
Okay.
There is no substitute for that. Just get in front of people as many times as you can. Try to come across as human and kind. And there's not too many people that are looking for the next angry young comic. I think there's probably too many people get into comedy thinking that's the mark they want to make. Yeah. But it's probably not in most cases the way to go. Show that you're human. Show that you care about other people as well as yourself, and try to be relatable and show that you're experiencing some of the same things that they're experiencing, and you're serving a valuable purpose because you're actually giving voice to something that they feel inside and that they hear come out in you.
Amen to that. Great advice, Rex. And how can fans follow you on social media or contact you for booking?
Well, I don't do social media all that much. Okay. I've had people tell me that I should, but I don't do too much of it. I have a Facebook page. The two main websites though are rexhavens.com and womenfirsttheater.com. So yeah, you can look there, and there's email information there, and there's even phone numbers there. So there you go, rexhavens.com and womenfirsttheater.com.
Awesome.
And my book, which is out there, is called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned from My Wife.
Awesome stuff, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking with the very funny Havens on the Maurice Brown Show. If you have enjoyed watching this, please like and share. Once again, we've been talking with Rex Havens on the Maurice Brown Show. By the way, Rex, you can see a replay of this tonight on Roku TV on the Creative Motion Network. So
thanks very much. That's great.
Hey, thank you, Rex. May the peace of Christ be with you and your family, my friend. Thank you so much. God bless you.
And to you. Thank you so much, Maurice. I really enjoyed it. Can't tell you how much, really.
Thank you, my friend.